I couldn't get promoted despite all the hours. I decided then I was going to start my own firm.
Shainul Kassam runs Fortune Law, a boutique corporate and dispute firm.
I don't have a single client, but not only did I get one flotation, I got two. So driver, one of the most important words in my vocabulary. Getting really good people is very, very hard, but I am still bottleneck.
Hey everyone. Today's guest built a law firm in a way most lawyers never attempt. At just 29 years old, Shainul Kassam started her own practice with no clients, no safety net, and only 3 years of qualification behind her. Today, she runs Fortune Law, a boutique corporate and dispute firm, working with founders, entrepreneurs, and high-growth business, navigating complex legal challenges. But the real story isn't just building the firm. It's the founder's decision behind it, managing risk while raising a family, handling shareholder disputes, leading a small team, and now figuring out how AI is changing the future of legal work. In today's episode, we unpack a founder psychology, scaling professional services business, and the tough decisions leaders face when the buck stops with them. Shainul, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here to join you on your podcast.
It's my pleasure. Let's start off. Why start a law firm at 29 with no clients?
Well, it wasn't intentional. I mean, I think I had the same aspirations that many people have when they're entering into the legal profession. And that really is to get a very good training contract and then be able to specialize in the area that you would like to specialize in, and then work your way up, building technical skills, building client development skills, and then marketing and business development skills, and just working my way up as I had intended into partnership in a law firm. And actually, that didn't quite work out as quickly as I would have liked. I'm quite impatient, and I worked very, very hard at the firm that I trained at and then qualified into the corporate seat there. And I worked many hours, as corporate lawyers are known to do, 18 hours a day, sleeping in the office, 9 months without a day off, floating companies. And I wanted to be promoted. But law firms, especially larger law firms, are, structured in a way that you cannot just speed up the ladder. It depends, regardless of, how capable or competent you are. There's always somebody slightly ahead of you that is waiting for their turn. And actually you have to go in the timetable or in the time frame that the law firm has set, because they're an established business and they have an entire recruitment process set up that doesn't really lend itself well to people who are impatient or mavericks or, want to go faster than the norm. So I couldn't get promoted despite all the hours and all the billing and all the competence that I thought I had developed in a shorter period of time. And I didn't really want to work for another law firm because I had trained at the firm I was at and spent 5.5 years there. And I decided then I was going to start my own firm.
So you start off, what was the scariest moment in your first year?
How do I work out how to use the printer? I mean, I'm not joking. I really do think that was the worst thing, because, when you're working in a professional environment, you have people doing everything for you. So, if you needed court bundles made up, or you needed, folders sorted out, or, you had what was called then a reprographic clerk, and his name was David, and you would just send everything down to David and he would sort it all out. And then when I first ordered my printer, scanner stroke photocopier, etc., I thought, right, how on earth am I going to build this? I have no idea, because all I did was draft and review and meet and advise. And so learning those things that I wasn't able to do professionally because I had never needed to know how to do them. Those were the scariest things, not the I'm all by myself, I don't have a single client and so on, because I just assumed that if you build a business, people will come and you'll be able to service and deliver, because I knew I was a very good lawyer, but I just was not very good at flat pack furniture and building things.
Yeah, this is one of the most underestimated things, right? How do I get the tech on? How do I start a printer? There you go, when it starts off there. Absolutely normal. Talk to me about your early days. Why didn't you quit when the early numbers were uncertain?
The early days, oh gosh, that was the easiest time. Your revenue went from nothing upwards. It was just an upwards number. And I was out meeting people, and I love meeting people. So for me, a day where I was at home with my computer was a day where I thought, well, I have no energy. I don't understand it. And the days when I was out meeting and greeting and going to networking events or meeting clients or prospective clients, I came back bouncing, really. This has just come along with me. And I remember thinking, right, if I felt nervous and I was lacking courage that day, I would just put that fear into my back pocket and I would go out that day and I would make things happen. It was daunting, I would say, but it never occurred to me that I should quit because my mind was set on building something. If your mind is set on building something, there is nothing or nobody or anybody who is going to stop you, at least in the early days when you are building traction. So I was used to working hard, but it was different because I was building something for myself.
What advice would you give to someone who has a family and wants to follow in your footsteps?
I would take calculated risk. I would plan better because I didn't really have a plan in the sense that I knew what I needed to do in terms of what I thought was the revenue that I needed and so on. Because when you're starting out, that's what you're really doing. You're having to build traction, so you're having to build revenue. As your business is growing, other things become more important. Leading a team, developing people, working in a way that is sort of taking the environment into consideration. For example, there's lots of other things that you do in your later years rather than in your formative years. But if you have a family and you're starting something, I would say have some cash in the bank and have a plan. So have a plan so you could discuss it with your partner, your husband, your wife or whoever, and you're all in it together because it can be lonely doing this solo, but I think it's still lonely if you're doing it as part of a family unit because there are certain things only you are going to carry on your shoulders. So actually enabling the people around you to understand that journey and communicating that journey is really important.
When it comes to your business, again, just at the initial few years, what was your strategy you used, right? Walking out of a corporate job or a secure job, starting your own business. How did you go about attracting your first clients across the first 2 years?
So I'm assuming I had some restrictive covenants in my employment contract such a long time ago now, I can't remember, but I would never have done anything to breach those. But secondly, I was really young and I don't think anyone thought I was a threat at all. I was floating companies on the stock market and I don't think any of my bosses thought I was actually going and getting a flotation in my first year. But not only did I get one flotation, I got two. And so that was really exciting. And one of the floats that I worked on, I was acting for the nominated advisor and broker on both of those transactions. And the company was being represented by my former law firm. So I had to go into meetings at their offices on the other side of the table. So that was fun. And then people who I'd worked with in my old law firm, they started to come and they referred some work. And then actually, mainly, I was not relying on that because you can't rely on a source of revenue or income when you're just starting out. You have to be out there doing multiple things. So I was out a lot. I was going to every networking event. I was meeting people. It was quite funny because people would say to me, oh, yes, Fortune Law, I know your firm. Definitely things that went wrong and didn't work out. And you had to just reevaluate and do something different.
What was a big challenge when you were
Recruitment.
Go on, tell me more.
Well, recruitment, you can probably ask every law firm founder or any law firm partner, and they will tell you the same thing. Getting really good people is very, very hard.
You're in a people business, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, if I was doing something completely different, if it's a technology business, I might tell you something different. But you're absolutely right. We're in a people business. So getting the people right is really important. Now, it's quite tricky because when you're small and boutique, but you have really high standards, it's quite hard to find people who have really high standards who want to work in a small firm because the people with really high standards are working in bigger firms usually and have, the people you want who have ability in M&A, cross-border M&A, those kinds of sort of big ticket items are not usually doing those in smaller firms. And also, even though they might be 6, 7, 8 years qualified, they don't necessarily have the same level of hands-on client experience that you would expect for someone who works in a smaller firm. So they are doing huge transactions and perhaps haven't developed the same skills that you need in a smaller boutique practice. But that's the really difficult thing, is looking at a resume or a CV and going, right, academically, you look technically brilliant. You've worked in the same kind of space, but actually, have you done that work or have you supported that work? And how much of your work is client facing? Because everyone in our team is client facing. And that's a whole new skill.
How systematized is that business right now, today, on a scale of 1 to 10?
I think I'm less bottleneck than I used to be, but I am still bottleneck.
1 to
And
10,
that's
where do you like? 10 being the total bottleneck.
8, 7, 8.
Ah,
No, because
but you're not 10, right? You're not 10. That's
it's
okay.
not 10. It's not 10. And the reason it's not 10 is because we have set up a system where we have people who look after HR, who do the monthly meetings with team, who go through targets, who go through training, and so on. We have special projects and operations. So that we have somebody who works on, for example, I'm sure we'll come to it, but we're looking at our AI deployment and other things as well fall within that. Then we have our external marketing team. So they are dealing with all the social media posting and so on. So that probably takes me 10 minutes a month, right? Where everything gets created and I just need to just go, yes, it's in theme or not, or, actually want to redirect it somewhere else. So that was a big job I used to do because I love marketing, but that bit's gone. I do different marketing. So I'm still working on client relationships and business development, but not the sort of social media aspect of it. And then we have someone who does client relationships, who checks in with clients after we've closed files and tries to do that sort of revenue generation, business development there as well.
And what would be that split if you love to work with clients, but also grow the business to a multi-million-pound firm? What would that split look like, in your opinion?
Well, I'm going to have to do less and less because everyone I speak to who's been in the same situation has just said, I can't do chargeable work anymore. I had to move out of that. And so I think there'll probably become a pain point somewhere where actually the decision will be made for me rather than me feeling like I'm forced to make a decision. Because at the end of the day, as a business owner, you have to act in the best interest of your business in the same way that as a solicitor, I act in the best interest of my clients. So what will be in the best interest of the firm? And is there enough traction to allow me to step aside? Is there enough revenue? Are there enough good people to take that on and who are skilled to do it in a particular way? And law firm founders of smaller practices are in a different situation than that, actually. It's quite unique.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a journey one has to go through, right? And like you said, till you reach that threshold or the pain point, you'll continue to operate in a way that makes sense. But talk to me, what's harder, winning clients or building the right team?
Building the right team. We don't win every piece of work, by the way. We don't. And that could be down to cost. It could be down to complexity. It could be something where a specialist skill is required or a larger firm is required with a different expertise. So those are the reasons we don't necessarily win all the work. But I think building the team is really because people are people, right? So everyone needs something different. Everyone needs a different pathway. And not everybody is going to hit the skills threshold it's required as quickly as everyone else. Some people are very speedy and fast and are, hugely competent by the time they're qualified. And some people might be at 5 or 6 years and still haven't worked it out really. And I think it really depends which firm you work at as well, because in some firms that development is not in place until later, for example. So maybe people say, oh, you need to do client stuff until you're 7 years PQE. And then at 7 years PQE, they say, why aren't you doing any client stuff? You can't progress without it. Where's your book of business? And you're like, well, I've been at my desk for 7, 8, 9 years, doing the work. I haven't learnt that bit. So I think that's what's hard, is that you have to adjust to what different people need. And in a small firm, that's not as easy because there's not enough space to carry the development of people who need more time.
Got it. And when did you realize in this journey of yours, the main fee earner of the business, which part of that journey? Are you still the main fee earner?
Well, I'm stepping out of being the main fee earner, actually. I don't mind that at all. That's not what's relevant to me. If someone else is building that revenue instead of me, that's great. That's perfect. That's how you grow, actually, because you step out, someone else steps in, and then you can do something else. So in a way, it's very rare I lose my mojo. It can happen, but it's very rare.
Excellent. So let's talk about the exciting AI world that we live in now. Why are clients more trusting AI first before going to a lawyer today?
Well, it's sort of an extrapolation or an extension of using the internet. So if you are already going to the internet and you are already asking questions, because we all do that, right? But we are all equipped to use a platform to help us find answers. And now what we have the rise of ChatGPT, for example, which you can go into it and ask better questions and get potentially better answers. And I say potentially because there's huge caveats there. And right now, people who are not paying for it, it's free. So you can use it. It's free. You can ask it questions. Why wouldn't you? So I can't blame or not understand why clients do that. It makes perfect sense. However, there are two, maybe more, but two types of client that I can see. And one is I have used this to do everything, the more trusting client, shall I say. And now I want you to check it to make sure it makes sense and it's legally compliant. Now, they don't trust it fully, but they trust it more. However, on the other hand, there is a client who I spoke to yesterday, for example, a prospective client who says, I needed something. I needed a structure. So I went to ChatGPT with my thought process and I've created something. They have sent it to me, but they don't expect me to do. They've actually said it's not legally compliant. It's nowhere near a legal document. It obviously can't do anything that you're going to do, but I needed a structure. Now, that's the perfect kind of client who is trying to use their thought process, their knowledge, their contextual awareness of the circumstances of the situation to create something and then to hand it to the expert and say, hopefully this makes more sense, but I know you're going to do the legal work. Now, right now, that's more helpful to us. Because the other way is we're working with things that don't make sense, are not legally compliant, and it's actually not necessarily the documentation, it's the client's belief that the documentation is adequate to a point, whereas our starting point is it's not adequate to the point you think it is, and want to plan your business and train your people for that. That's really exciting.
Talk to me about, when you talk about your clients, what mistakes do you see clients make when they're using AI?
Breach of confidentiality. That's a serious error. So they may take a document that they have signed that they think, well, I don't really understand this bit, or I don't understand this clause, and they put it into GPT. Sorry to malign ChatGPT, but it's the easiest one to think of. And they put it into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT says, this clause says X, Y, and Z. This means A, B, and C. Now, it may be wrong. Okay, well, we know it may be wrong. But what's happened is the document has gone into the public domain, and chances are it will have a confidentiality clause in there, which prohibits you from disclosing this information to third parties. And that's gone out there. So that's a serious risk to clients. And I do try and speak about this a lot to clients when I am speaking to them. Secondly, they may make decisions based on what has been translated or summarized, because they're actually really intelligent, most of our clients. You know, I would say all of our clients are really intelligent and they're really smart people and they are very good at making decisions, but they're not necessarily good at making the right decisions based on the information presented to them if they don't verify it, right? And so they take a narrow view of the bigger picture because they're only using one clause or one document, or sometimes there's multiple documents. And that's where an understanding of how things fit in and what goes here and what goes here doesn't necessarily bring you the output that you think it has. And the decision you make here will have a knock-on effect somewhere else. So that's a risk as well. So the confidentiality bit is a risk. And secondly, not having the full facts is a risk. And number three, relying on things that don't exist. That how are you supposed to know? Right. So I just, the last two newsletters I've sent out to our database are about the risks in AI. And so the one that went out earlier this week was about case law and hallucinations in case law and the negative consequences, reputationally and in terms of cost. And then there was this, in one of the cases, the lawyer was given all the information by the client and either didn't check it, well, obviously didn't check it, but took it at face value, may even have said to the client, this is on you, I'm not taking responsibility for it. But it went to court and it was picked up that those cases weren't real. And it was the solicitor that was castigated, and the solicitor had a cost order against them personally because they should not have brought that to the court. So there's a huge responsibility, which is not changed. We are not meant to mislead the court as solicitors. So AI is not changing or making that obligation heavier. It's just the information wasn't checked. And that sort of reliance or over-reliance on AI that's not quite there yet, that's a real concern.
Got it. And where do you feel law firms will be 5 years from now?
I always think that 5 years is miles away and so many things will change. And then I also know that in our industry, things don't change as quickly as one would like. So, for example, when we had COVID, There are a lot of firms that could not open their doors, right? They couldn't open their doors because we were not permitted to do that. And they couldn't also service their clients because they were not set up in the cloud. And that was a really big problem for a lot of firms, not for us, because we already had everything set up, not because of COVID, but just because we had it, because it was a sensible thing to do. So there will be firms who are not going to be moving as fast. And in 5 years' time, they probably are still trying to work out what to use and how to deploy it. Yeah. And then there'll be other firms who are going to be leading the charge. And they're usually the big firms, but often small firms too, because small firms don't have to wait as long as law firms might need to get everyone's buy-in and the budget and so on, and then deploy it out. So law firms who are very large, who are adopting AI internally, are actually moving faster, but not necessarily the fastest, but they are also not deploying across the workforce. They're taking it in tranches so that they don't take risk. I mean, I was at a conference last week on Monday, and it was organized by Harvey. And one of the firms who use Harvey, it's an AI platform for lawyers, said that they had to replicate their entire Harvey system externally in case something happened to Harvey, right? So you can't put all your eggs in one basket as a law firm, and all the risks relating to client data, confidentiality, privilege, and so on. That's all hugely important. So we have to make sure that the platforms are fit for purpose in order that we can comply with our regulatory obligations. So to answer your question, there are firms that are already in the future, and there are firms who are playing catch up.
And coming back to you, what are the top 3 things you feel that have made you successful where you are today?
Drive, resilience, people skills.
Okay. Talk me through those 3. Drive.
So drive, this is one of the most important words in my vocabulary. And this is really what we look for in people as well who come to join. Like, do you have drive? Like, if you have the ability to self-propel yourself, I mean, that is one of the most fundamental skills in life.
Do you identify drive when you're recruiting people, getting your team on board?
What motivates them, how strong that motivation is, because everyone's motivated by something. But the question is, are you motivated beyond when the day gets bad? When everything's working fine, then everybody is motivated to a degree. And people think they're motivated. And people think, I've seen so many startup businesses fall down because the founder liked the idea, was motivated, but up to a point. And after that point, they're not motivated anymore. And actually, it's easier for them to shut up shop than it is to get through that bit. And I find it really disappointing because all of that first bit took a lot of time and effort and money, and actually was never going to turn into the results on the other side because the founder didn't have enough motivation or drive to make that happen.
Do you have a framework or an interview process to identify this particular skill set within a client?
Our interview process is always under review. So we're interviewing a junior role again now, and we're changing our process again because we're constantly learning from the things that we thought were going to pinpoint certain skill sets to not being able to see those in practice. And this is why recruitment is so hard and is one of the hardest challenges, because everybody sounds great. People look good on paper. Then they come in, they sound good. And we run a 4-stage process now. So there is me looking through the initial CVs to figure out exactly in terms of academics and technical skills and all the other things I'm looking for. Then that goes to our ops manager, and then she tests for different things, practical application of skills and other things. Then it goes to our HR manager, who is looking for how to spot the things that usually go wrong when she's running her monthly meetings with the team. Like, what kind of things, are pain points in the team? And so trying to work out how she's going to, put forward somebody who is going to be less impacted by those things. And then we are going to run the Watson-Glaser test, which a lot of law firms use. And it's 5-stage now. And then I do the final interview. And that final interview, there is a practice exercise, 2 practice, an in-tray exercise, and then a sort of a contractual review exercise together with talking me through the CV. But even with those 5-step processes, I can't guarantee to you that we'll pick the person. So we are doing our best.
Understood. And when it comes to you, right, as a founder, how do founders carry the weight of every decision, especially if you being almost every decision that goes through you?
I have no problem with carrying the weight. It's my responsibility. I have no problem with accountability. If I get things wrong, it's like, okay, well, what did we get wrong? It depends what we got wrong. Usually we don't get things wrong which have anything to do with anything other than money, right? So for example, I say, we'll invest in this thing. That didn't quite work out. Or we'll invest in that process and that didn't quite work out. We'll spend money on this marketing effort. That didn't work out. We don't get things wrong to do with our service delivery, because that's not permissible. The mistakes get made internally if they're going to get made, and then they should be caught before they go out the door. So we make mistakes. And, as a team, we might hire somebody, might not be the right fit. Okay, well, we make a decision. Should we close our doors before the announcement is made at COVID that all businesses need to close? That's my decision. Did we furlough people? No, we didn't. Should I have done that differently? Probably. There are lots of things that can not go right, shall we say, but it's not going to be to do with ethics, to do with credibility, to do with reputation. It will be business operational issue.
So let me ask you this question then. As a coach, what's bigger, the brand or Shainul, when it comes to the Fortune Law?
That's difficult. Very difficult, because people don't usually come to the firm because of the name of the firm. I don't know if they come to the firm because of the name. We actually haven't done that survey. That might be something important to do when we go and speak to our clients about why they come, and did they come because of the name of the firm, or they came because of a specific fee earner, or whatever it is. So for me, if people came and they said because of the firm, God, that would be brilliant. That's building a business that stands alone outside of you. But I fear that it's a lot to do with me, because I'm so vocal and I'm out there and I'm promoting. And so if I disappeared tomorrow, then I don't know who would come and when they would come or why they would come, because a lot of work is referral work as well. We do get work that is not referral work. We do get work that is that comes direct, but that's not the majority of the work. The majority of the work comes from trusted relationships, which I've helped curate, and it comes from existing clients. But I don't know, sometimes I feel a sense of relief when the client comes and goes straight to someone else. I'm like, oh, good, don't need me. Maybe I can go on holiday. But equally, it's nice to feel like there is a big job coming and we want you to do it, Shainul. That also feels very nice. And I feel like when you're trying to scale a business, people expect or think you should step away from that desire and, work on the numbers, really.
Yes. Interesting point that was. What's the hardest part then of leading a small professional service team for you?
Development, the recruitment and the development of the team. Because when you are small, there aren't that many interchangeable people at the top. So if you are working and focusing on training and bringing people up, and then I, for example, want to move stage left, that's tricky. Yeah. So you need to make sure everything's stable before you start making big changes. So that stability is quite a challenge.
Got it. No, this makes sense. All right, Shainul, thank you very much. That's a wrap for today. Thank you. The support. It's great having you here.
Thank you for having me.